great in this activity and in this competition. The end results, 27 schools from all over the world got the top ranking. 16 schools out of 27 were from Saudi Arabia. This is a huge achievement, and this tells us about the potentials of our students and of our teachers. In the first round, first time we do Word Mania, and we conquered the world, 16 out of 27. And that's thanks to you all. And that's why I'm here today to thank you for this. Then, this year also we had the self-newsletter. Can I have a show of hands if you have heard of the self-newsletter or magazine? I saw so many hands. All of you, you should have heard of this one. It's a place where English language teachers, male and female, supervisors, all interested in education, can be part of this. This was the first issue. And you can go online to selfksa.com and you can download this one as a PDF. It has so many articles that you can look at, and in the next edition, you will see more participation. It's a good way to look at it. You'll see so many teachers like you with many ideas. When I was going around in the exhibit, I was impressed by so many of these ideas. And I think it's a chance that you go into selfksa.com and download this one. Then we have the Professional Development Project. Teachers from Jazan region were really good. We've covered a lot of ground, and we've trained over 25,000 teachers from all over Saudi Arabia, face to face. That's a huge achievement. Now this one, we had an online program with EF and National Geographic Learning. Jazan region was top in EF and National Geographic. They completed all the exercises before any other region in Saudi Arabia. This tells you about you, how excited you are about professional development, how excited you are about improving yourself to be better practitioners. Guidelines. We had people from your area working with us on these guidelines with guidance from my colleague, Mr. Abdullah Al-Badri, and people in the ministry and people from the area. We got these guidelines, and it helps us in designing and building up testing. English for All program. English for All program, if you log into AIM portal, you're going to know all more about English for All program. All of us, English language teachers and professionals here, we should know about English for All. English for All is a program where you log into the AIM portal, and I assume all of you have access to the AIM portal. And when you have access to the AIM portal, you could go to English for All, and you can select the proficiency programs that you would like. We have 5 companies. You select and you log in. You have 6 months access. You can choose from one of the providers. You have 6 months access to improve your proficiency at English. And this program is not just for English language teachers, male and female. It's for all teachers from all different subjects. Also, it's for students in the secondary stage. So If students want to improve their proficiency level, they might want to log into the AIM portal. So if you have the time, please go and do that. We have also the NISA project. We are in the pilot stage. It's a collaboration between the ministry and Cambridge University, where we have extra hours for English when we have training on the Cambridge CELT-S program, Certificate for English Language Teachers for secondary stage. They get a certificate from Cambridge. It's a huge program. And also students, at the end, they take the PET test, and once they pass the PET test, they could go into university without taking the foundation year English. So it's a program that we might explore more. TESOL, Saudi, that's a program that's just in the beginning, and TESOL is an international organization, teachers of English to speakers of other languages. We hope that we have TESOL Saudi in the near future. So, this is just a way to say thank you and tell you how the important role you play as professionals in the development of English language teacher in Saudi Arabia. So, I thought I'd start my presentation now, and the first thing that I would like to talk about is the Saudi Vision 2030. Now, the Saudi Vision 2030, we talk about the vision a lot, and in every conversation we talked about the vision a lot, and it's the guidelines for us to move ahead. So I thought that we could talk about some ideas that's in the vision itself. The vision is an 86-page document, and I encourage all of you to read it. And also I encourage you to use some of the articles there in your reading passages in the test, so students get familiar and acquainted with it. So let's start. So the vision is built around 3 themes. Thank you. Number 1, a vibrant society. A society that is full of life and enthusiasm. So this is theme number 1. Theme number 2, a thriving economy. And it states here, and what I'm saying here, it's from the vision. I'm just quoting what's in the vision. So, provides opportunities for all by building an education system aligned with market needs. So remember these words. Some of the words I'm going to go back to. Again, aligned with market needs. Okay? So there is a difference. And he talks about education. We're going to talk more about it later. An ambitious nation. 3 themes: a vibrant society attached to its Islamic values, a thriving economy, an ambitious nation. We want to reach the top. This is a quote from the vision itself. The reason I got this quote, you'll know later in the presentation. The skills, building character, and competencies of our children are one of the most important and cherished assets. Remember these words: building character, competencies, skills. So we see skills now talked about more than once, and this is all about education. So our role will be to build the students' character, competencies, and skills. How we can do that? I'll tell you how we can do that. And later on, I think you might find some ideas to explore more. Learning for working, and this is also of great importance. We will continue investing in education and training so that our young men and women are equipped with the jobs of the future. I highlight this word, jobs of the future. What do we mean by jobs of the future? It is something that you might want to consider. So we are preparing our students for the future and the jobs of the future. What do we mean by that? We'll talk later about what do we mean by jobs of the future and what does it require. So, let's look at this, and this will help us understand how English language teaching methods evolved throughout the years. So number one will be during the first Industrial Revolution in the 1800s until 1869. So, a lot of focus was on the grammar translation methods, where students have to memorize so many vocabularies and grammar rules. They have to memorize these things. Look how old is this method. And unfortunately, when I visit schools, I see people still teach in the grammar translation method. As we went by the second Industrial Revolution, the audiolingual method came in along with the grammar translation, where there is a lot of drilling. Students listen and drill, so there is a lot of drilling. And then the third Industrial Revolution, there was a focus on communicative language teaching, socio-cultural approaches, and multiliteracies. So we talk about communicative language teaching. That was in the third Industrial Revolution. Now the fourth Industrial Revolution, some people say 2008, some people say 2016. Now, if you look at the focus here, we see the technology it's used here, Internet of Things, Uber, Airbnb, and all these things. So we're looking at, these are the theories that you might want to explore. And if you want to do a thesis, you might want to consider these things. The ecological, the systems, the complexity theory by Larson Freeman, the symbolic competence, task-based learning. So, I would really urge you to look into those 5. If you know them already, that's good. If you don't, you might want to Google them, look at articles, and try to practice them and learn more about them. One of the things that you might also want to consider is something that's called the global competence. What do you mean by global competence? If you look at our students, they cannot be taught in isolation from the whole world. With global competence, your students is part of this world. So they need to understand and act on issues of global significance, not just within their closed environment. They need to look at the world from a wider perspective. Globally competent individuals possess and apply following qualities. So they have characteristics, abilities to learn about and engage within the world. Try to connect between the ideas that in the vision and with the global competence, so that we are part of this world. These are the 4 dimensions of the global competence. You could communicate ideas, recognize perspective, investigate the world, take action. And also, I encourage you to look into the global competence and see what does it mean. There is a new trend in TESOL called the 6 principles. The 6 principles for exemplary teaching of English learners. There is a book that was released last year with this name. TESOL will continue to explore. This is a brochure of this book, the 6 principles. There is a book called The 6 Principles. You can find it on Amazon, and you can buy this book. The 6 Principles for Exemplary Teaching of English Learning. So, let's look at these 6 principles. Number 1, know your learners. And what do I mean by know your learners? It's not just know their name. No, it's more than that. You need to know about their educational background, about their social status, about their well-being in general. This will be really beneficial for you in teaching. Create conditions for language learning. Not just the physical conditions, but also a caring condition for motivation and for support for your students inside the classroom. Design high-quality lessons for language development. If you plan your lessons well, you will achieve the goals and the objectives. So, this is of great importance. So, the much time you spend on being prepared, you will achieve the results. I'm talking quickly. You can read more about it, but I'm just giving you some ideas. Adapt lesson delivery as needed. What do I mean by that? While you are teaching a lesson, you should have a sense of reflection. Go back, think about what you have done, and make sure that your students are following up with you, are learning. So you need to have this sense of reflective practice. You need also to monitor and assess students' language development. If you cannot assess them, evaluate them as they progress so that you can give them more feedback, enrichment tasks, wherever, so that you know where do they stand. Engage and collaborate within a community of practice. What we are doing right now is a community of practice, where teachers from different parts of Jazan are meeting together and talking about mutual problems so that you can solve them together. Have a community of practice within your school. Talk to teachers of the same subject or from different subjects so that you can explore more ideas. So this is about the 6 principles. So what I'm talking about is going to be aligned with the Saudi Vision 2030. There is a lot of talk about 21st century skills. Can I have a show of hands if you have heard of something called 21st century skills? If you have heard of it, just raise your hand. Not too many. This is something that you might want to consider looking at. If you heard the term the 4 C's. So 21st century is about the 4 C's. Some people will talk about the 7 C's. So what do you think C number 1 is? Creativity is one thing. Number 1 is critical thinking. Number 2 is exactly creativity. Number 3, exactly collaboration. Good. Number 4, communication. So these are the 4 C's. And if you're following what we are trying to look at would be 21st century skills. So these are the 4 important things to look at. Critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, communication. Where do they come at Bloom's taxonomy? You have heard of Bloom's taxonomy, and this is Bloom's taxonomy. So this is I would say the new version of Bloom's taxonomy. We start with remembering, understanding, and applying. So comprehension would be here. But as we go up, we're looking at higher order thinking skills. So evaluating and analyzing would be critical thinking, and creating would be creativity. So with 21st century skills, we're looking at the top of the pyramid. We're looking at the top. So to look for a 21st century learner, you need to have these diagrams come together. You need skills, you need knowledge, and you need character. Have you seen these words before? Where did we see these words? We saw it in the vision. In the vision, it was clear that we should build our students what? Character, and we should build our students what? Skills. So all these are aligned with the Saudi vision. And these are things that you might want to consider. The vision also talked about jobs of what? The future. So jobs of the future. So employers, what are they looking for? If you own a job, what will you be looking for? So let's look at these stats. 68% of global business surveyed assess their employees' proficiency in English. So that tells you how important is English. 68%. 31% of global business surveyed found that job applicants lacked the necessary written skills in English. 7% of the second language speakers felt they could communicate effectively in English at work. Now this is 91% of global business surveyed thought it was beneficial to the company if employees spoke English. So this will tell you about the importance of the English language. So if your level at English, you're proficient at English, you are more likely to get a job than the other one with no English. So that will increase your possibility of getting a job by 91%. No, that's huge. 17% of global business surveyed found that job applicants lack the necessary reading skills in English. So these stats are something that you might want to consider. So we can see the gap here. Writing in English, English language spoken, reading comprehension. You see the gap, 31%, 26%, 17%. This is for global business, and I assume here the gap would be even higher. So what will English language look like in the year 2025? And what would the learners want? And that's in the European countries. So employers will continue to need employees who have high level of English. Okay. Again, back to the vision. High level of English skills, again the word skills, including for specific tasks such as negotiations. So this is something that, a skill that we need to foster in our teaching. Solving logistical problems, solving problems, again, 21st century skills. Presenting a new strategy, presentation skills. So these are skills that you might want to focus on. So the jobs of the future require skills, and these are some of the skills that we want to help our students acquire. So we'll focus on what? Giving presentations, negotiating, participating in international conferences calls, networking at events. These are some of the skills that we want our students to acquire throughout their education, and all aligned with the vision. I'll see if this video works. Can we play the video? Okay, this is Mike Mayer, and he would like to say a few words to you. So I'll see if it works, that would be fine. Huh? Yeah.
Hi, I'm Mike Mayer. I'm Director for the Global Scale of English at Pearson. I'm really happy to have this opportunity to say greetings to all the Saudi educators in the room. I hope you're going to have a great conference. I know the conference is going to focus on 21st century skills, which is a subject very close to my heart at the moment. I've been doing a lot of research into the skills that employers are looking for in those students that you're training at the moment. And I think English language teachers in particular are in a really strong position to train your students for the future, because as much as employers value knowledge, what they are also looking for are the 21st century skills. So they want learners who can demonstrate critical thinking, can work in teams, can be creative. And this is fundamentally what you are able to do as a language teacher. You're training your students in so many more skills than just English language, as long as you make sure that your lessons are not too teacher-centered. So in order to learn a language, it very much has to come from the learner. So even though I know it's difficult in many cultures, you have to try to put the emphasis on the learner, and the learner learning by doing, by participating. So I think it's a great future for English language teachers, and I hope you all have a wonderful conference.
So you heard it from Mike Mayer. So what we are talking about is something already going on in the world. So when I first looked at this picture, the first thing that came to my mind that those people were cleaning the windows, right? Actually, they are not. This is a job that was in the 1880s or the early 1900s. It's called the knocker upper. That's a strange name for a job title. So the knocker upper would go on houses and knocks on the windows so people will come to work, okay, in the ships. And then what happened in the 1940s? An invention, a great invention, which is the alarm clock. So, do we need these people? No, we don't. So what happens to those people if they don't have skills? They might not have a job. Then, these are questions that most of us teachers do. We ask our students, to what? What do you want to be in the future, right? I want to be a doctor, I want to be a teacher, I want to be an engineer, and all these things, but usually this is like one of the more common answers. A doctor. How many students do you have said, I want to be an app developer? Okay, how to be an app developer? I want to be a blogger. I want to be an offshore wind farm engineer. I want to be a drone operator. I want to be a sustainability director. These jobs didn't exist. Now they exist. We didn't prepare our students to be those things, but if we gave them the skills, they could be whatever they want. We don't know what the future would look like. So time to change, should we be worried? And this is something that you might want to look at. 65% of today's 12-year-olds will do jobs that don't exist. 65%. 65%. They will do jobs that do not exist. So how do we get a job that doesn't exist yet? What's would the future look like? So we say farewell to job titles and hello to what? Skill sets. Thank you very much.
I would like to thank Mr. Abdul Rahman for his presentation. It was really great, valuable, informative. This time is for asking any questions or comments. Is there any questions? Any comments? Okay, this time enough. Ustad Yasir? Ustad Yasir?
Yeah. تكريم باسم الملتقى للأستاذ عبد الرحمن الفريح. كذلك تكريم للمتحدث الأستاذ عبد الله قيسي.
Well, now the camera will choose the first winner of Wall Street cars. Congratulations. You can go to Wall Street corner to, okay?
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I'm Muhammad Ahmed Al-Masrahi, Supervisor in Jazan Central Education Office. Your Excellency, Professor Ali bin Yahya Al-Arishi, when you stood behind this podium, you thanked me. I'm the one who's supposed to thank you because you are the father of education. Your roots are deep and your branches are still covering education everywhere. A great evidence of this is your presentation now with us and your participation. So thank you very much. And I want to say to you that you were the one or of those who gave me a key of success in my life. I still remember your recommendation letter. So allow me to thank you again, Professor Ali bin Yahya Al-Arishi. Our speaker, every time I meet him, I have to kiss his head. So allow me to do it again. Assalamu alaikum. Professor Ali bin Yahya al-Arishi is presently a member of the Saudi Shura Council in its 7th term. He had been a former vice president of Jazan University. He is a professor with a PhD in applied linguistics from Indiana University, USA. He had been a former vice dean of the School of Education, King Saud University in Abha branch. He has authorized a number of books and research papers. His areas of research are interested in education, ELT, English education, and applied linguistics. He is, I can describe him in 3 words. He is a symbol, he is a sample, and he is simple. He is, I can say that he is a symbol of humanity and great morals. He is a sample of a successful career and a simple person in his relationships. Thank you, Professor Ali Al-Arishi. Please, he will speak about this caused me a lot of problems trying to pronounce it. Okay, constructivism and pedagogy. Okay, the way forward in ELT. Go ahead, Dr. Ali Al-Arishi. Please welcome him again. Thank you very much.
Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala Rasulullah. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. I think after this introduction by one of my diligent, humble, hard-working students, Muhammad al-Masrahi, and I remember I taught him, but then I did not know where is Muhammad nowadays. Let me first, before I start my lecture, to thank actually Dr. Asiri Lahwas for the invitation through the Director of Education in Jazan, which I was directing, as he said, about 15 years ago. We were in the same place. Thanks at the beginning will be extended to my diligent, humble student also, Mr. Ahmed Al-Hamzi, who was with me in Abha. And he was, I think, the reason for me being with you here. Okay, good. Okay. And I want also to thank some of my diligent students also who are here, and there are a lot. Some of them I can remember the face, but I cannot remember the name. But some of them will be people like Abu Bakr Wali, who is now directing the quality in Jazan Director of Education. And this is something that I'm proud of. I'm proud of all of you and of all of the guests who are here today. And I wish I could, after these years of going far away from the real area of English language education into administration that took me from Jazan University as a director of boys and girls for some time, and as a vice president of Jazan University for some time, and as a Shura member at this time, where there is no committee that says teaching English. There is a science and research committee, which I was part of also. But still, I think with all of these, I have the feeling and I have the wish to be standing one day in front of a classroom to teach English. The title, which is Constructivism and Critical Pedagogy, the Way Forward in ELT, that's the title that you see of my paper. And let me tell you why was it the case that I selected this title. The reason is that when I really thought the only way that I'm involved in teaching English or in really involving myself with the English language was when I go into one of the universities to be a supervisor or an outside examiner for some of our students. And this brings me to Dr. Ali Mujalli, by the way. Now, those that I mentioned were students in the bachelor degree. Dr. Ali Mujalli, believe it or not, is now in charge of the international schools in Jazan Director of Education. He was my student in the master's degree in Abha and his PhD degree in Riyadh when we discussed his dissertation for his PhD. And Ali is interested in teaching one of the very important skills, the skill of hearing connected with the skill of speaking at the same time. My second, I hope I could do it well, slide is an overview, and I hope I have to click it again maybe to show you what are the, okay. Now, in that overview, now I can govern it, I think. Okay, yes, it's okay, no problem, yeah. Yeah, no, it's okay, it's okay. In the overview, as you see, there comes a synopsis, and I will give you all of the items in that first slide, and then we will go over it one after the other. The second question is, what is constructivism? And the third point is defining critical pedagogy. The fourth point is the question how the two could combine together in today's classroom so that we can achieve some of what Mr. Abdurrahman said, who is in charge now of teaching English in the Ministry of Education in Saudi Arabia, and we were enlightened by his presentation. That was really comprehensive and to the point and on the job, as they say. And after that comes the question, is this the way forward in ELT? What I mean is constructivism and critical pedagogy are what we think will be the way forward in ELT. And then if time allows, I will go over some of the references and then we will conclude. Let me, in the synopsis, which is the first at the beginning, go back and say, if you don't mind, I will just click all of those so that we go into the next step, which is the synopsis. Okay. There it says, of late, let me read from the learner has moved from being a passive receptacle to an active constructionist, and English language teaching and learning has been no exception to it. Taking cue from Pedagogy of the Oppressed, Friday, 1970, this paper intends to take dialogue or dialogic educational practices, as also propounded by American psychologists that you all know, John Dewey, from the period between 1859 to the 1952, or to 1952, into this ever-evolving digital age of connectivity. And I think the word connection came in your presentation, Mr. Abdurrahman, and what we call deep learning. Not only learning on the, it should be deep learning. Next, teaching and learning of English language today encompasses active social learning environments, and I think the word environment came also, and critical construction of knowledge based on real-world experiences. Here we intend to investigate further the concurrent trends in ELT to suggest whether constructivism and critical pedagogy are indeed the way forward in ELT or not. What is constructivism? Constructivism refers to learning as an active, constructive process. And every word here means something. Active, you know the meaning of active, and constructive process. It's not a dull, passive. We construct our own understanding and knowledge of the world by experiencing things and reflecting on them. Our knowledge is thus created by subjective representation of objective knowledge comes into representations that now, that way he said it and the way he processed in his mind is subjective. But the fact is that he doesn't know that it's very difficult to get into the moon, of course. He got to be, in this case, an astronaut to go to the moon. But what we can say is objective is that the moon is there and people in NASA and other places in the world are trying to go to the moon. This is the difference between subjective and objective. Continuing about, again, constructivism, John Piaget, the Swiss scholar, as you know, between 1896 to 1980, spent his life investigating how does knowledge grow. Very important question. He professed that our learning is a construction of progressively complex logical structures right from infancy into adulthood. Constructivism is based on this premise of successive knowledge building that increases in depth and complexity with time and age. Again, the word complexity came in your presentation, Mr. Abdurrahman, I think, if I was right in listening. Now, next, John Dewey, in the period between 1859 to 1952, a Spanish opponent of rote learning, fought to reform pedagogical methods and curricula in his book, Democracy and Education, 1916, and in the second book, Logic, in 1938. Now, here, what we mean by rote learning. Now, all of the methods, Mr. Abdurrahman, that you listed at the beginning, grammar translation, drilling and practice learning, and that was our enjoyable way of the second day, actually. Have you really learned? What are the words that you learn? Put this word in a sentence. And I'm quite sure he will not be able to put that word in a sentence, which means that learning, real learning and not rote learning, has taken place. In this diagram that I will not go through too much actually, I take this from the web, and here, if you see in the middle, is the word constructivism. Where is it coming from, gentlemen? It's coming from all of those people, theorists, Vygotsky, Thomas Kuhn, all of those people are the people who actually gave us, after their work and studies, what we call constructivism. Now we come to the second part of the title of my paper, which is critical thinking. Now I'm looking at my watch at the same time that I am speaking, so that I will abide by the time I'm given, which is 30 minutes, as you know. What is critical pedagogy? Critical pedagogy refers to one of the post-method approaches to language teaching. And let me ask you, please, now, let's be a little bit interactive. What do we mean when we say the post-method? Anyone can tell me what we mean when we say post method? Okay, it means the no method. It's when the teacher enters the classroom and what we call, he will be eclectic. Eclecticism, where you will use the approach you need according to the situation that you are teaching inside the classroom. As a matter of fact, you might enter the classroom with a lot of things in your mind and then find that they are not functioning. People are not, students are not learning. Then you have to adjust yourself at that moment inside the classroom to be what we call a post-method applicator. Evolving from critical theory, this is a learning framework with an overt recognition of systemic, societal hegemonies and challenging them. In this case, what we mean by hegemonies are the authorities, the facts in the society that people are abide by and that they are really dealing with. Through unveiling the age-old oppressed and then oppressor dialectic, students and teachers engage in dialogue and experiences with the intention of doing away with the binary of us, them. What I mean by us, them is that they are the students and I am the teacher, right? We are the teachers and they are the students. Into what we call thinking towards critical consciousness. Critical, and the word critical came again in Mr. Abdurrahman's presentation, which was really enlightening. And here you want to be criticizing consciously, at the same time that you know what you are saying and what is it that you are doing. Then this term coined and developed first by the Brazilian scholar Paulo Freire in his book called Pedagogy of the Oppressed in 1970. Critical pedagogy to the classroom. In this diagram, you can see down there a lot of names, a lot of theories. These are, we call the roots of. From there, from those roots, it grows into the top of that tree until we reach inside the classroom where we have the students and the teachers in a kind of a very strong relationship, active and conscious at the same time. Now, in this diagram that you see, we have the word constructivism, and then critical pedagogy and learning. And we have what we call the ZP development. Look at the shape here. In the big white circle, students learn unaided, without the aid of the teacher, right? Look at that big circle. In the blue circle, which is smaller, as you can see, the student learns with help. The teacher will help the student. In that area, then you see, we reach what we call the zone of proximal development if, it's a big if we really have that large circle where we know that students have, and gentlemen, I swear, from the beginning I started teaching, whenever I enter the classroom, whether in high school or whether in the university, I put in my mind that, look, some students know something that you don't know. Some students know more than what you know. So try to respect your students' mind and try to, in this case, be the teacher who thinks of the large circle of his students and then the small circle that he, and once we mix those two, we end up with the potential area where learning is taking place. Here I'm putting the reference from where I took that. Now, let me go now very quickly into what we call the current practices in teaching and learning, what we might call micro objectives. Now, gentlemen, at this moment in the world, in the 21st century, as Mr. Abdurrahman said, that we are doing a lot of things and that there are jobs that we are not teaching our students, and they will be shocked one day when they go and see those jobs because we're not able to teach them. Now, in that, you will see some people are still practice drilling and still asking students to repeat after them. Believe it or not, this is the nature life goes. Now, in this kind of micro, which is opposite of macro, which will I show you in a moment, look at what we are doing. Path of inquiry is content-bound and focus on course coverage. You find the teacher running in order to complete his content so that he will prepare his students for the exam, right? That's the goal we have, is that we need him to very quickly cover the syllabus or the content so that we make him ready for the exam. So we think about our students as being examinees rather than learners, actually. Now, purpose and goals are narrow. I'll be very quick now. In scope and points of reference, minimal or reductionist. Next, more focused on productive knowledge and promotes reproduction, repetition, as I said, repeat after me, etc. Generally devoid of hands-on problem solving and real-world experiences. And here, when we say problem solving, Allah knows how many classes at this moment, I'm not talking about the world, I'm talking about our country here, who are really teaching having in mind that their students are ready to answer questions and give them problems to solve so they can what we call real learning, okay? Now, and real world experiences. Let me tell you one thing only. When I was in Abha, my wife was teaching in her practicum, and she was in the religious department, and they asked her to practice teach in the school, and they assigned her the Surah Ar-Rahman. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الرحمن علم القرآن خلق الإنسان علمه البيان. And then she came, she said, look, what can I say to teach those 6 verses that they gave me? I said, well, what can you, I asked her, I said, well, what can you do? She said, well, I will read those verses and then they will read after me, and that's it. I said, look, I was that time, as my students know, Vice Dean of the School of Education in Abha. So I said, look, now, and now how many are we? Okay. Well, then I can maybe take it in the questions. Let me then go very quickly. In macro, we have more linked to practical and restricted knowledge, and then to help students acquire broader worldview, connecting method, content, and structure, promotes dialectical mode of inquiry. Questioning is rewarded. We always reward our students for those questions. Now, gentlemen, I will ask the question, doesn't it sound more like the tenets of constructivism and critical pedagogy? ELT classroom today and tomorrow, no more is it only about the content delivery and the idle reception of that, student-centered, where transmission is dynamic and methods or no methods practices should be bottom-up and not top-down. Multiplicity of stimuli, that's a wide range of sources apart from teachers and books, online resources, multimedia, social media, apps, as we said, Mr. Abdurrahman, those apps that can our students really develop those apps that we need them. And then what are the current trends in teaching and learning? Learning is no more about more transmission of knowledge, information from teacher to student. It's about engaging students with ideas that matter to them. It is about actively involving them and getting them excited about what is going on in the classroom. Practice critical reflection to help them think of themselves and not merely to train them to be good examinees. It is this way that is this the way we think it will be? Yes, that's what I at least think personally. Teaching and learning of English language today should encompass active social learning environments, critical construction of knowledge based on real-world experiences. Indeed, a teaching and learning framework evolved around the precepts and practices of constructivism and critical pedagogy are the way forward in ELT. Selected references for those who are interested. And gentlemen, only a humble position. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Professor Ali. You reminded me of those days at university. It will not be repeated, okay? Where is the, because we don't have time for questions. أين تكريم؟ أستاذ ياسر. والله أمتعتني جدا جدا وذكرتني بأيام الله يكرم أجرك جزاك خير.
كل الشكر للدكتور علي عريشي ومقدم الجلسة، له شكر وتقدير من الإدارة ومن مكتب فرسان.
عندنا مشاركة الآن، تفضل. Okay, we have now a participation from one of our students, Abdulaziz Mjalli. Come here, Abdulaziz.
In the name of Allah, the most gracious and the most merciful, peace be upon the messenger of Allah, Muhammad bin Abdullah. Peace be upon you all. Good morning, everybody. My name is Abdulaziz Ali Mjalli. I am a 7th grade student at Jazan Private School. I love my country and I wish to be an active member of building my country's future. Today I will talk about my country and the future. Here is the glory, here is the greatness, here is the power, here is the knowledge, here is the wisdom, here are the heroes, here are the bright future makers, here are the confident leaders. Here is King Salman, here is Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, here is my country, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. My first objective is for our country to be a pioneer and successful global model of excellence on all fronts. And I will work with you to achieve that. Words of the custodian of the two holy mosques, King Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud. Here is the glory, here is the greatness, here is the power, here is the knowledge, here is the wisdom, here are the heroes, here are the bright future makers, here are the confident leaders, here is King Salman, here is the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, here is my country, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. All successful stories start with a vision, and successful visions are based on strong pillars. We are ambitious to achieve our long-term goals and expectations and reflect our country's strengths and capabilities. Words of His Royal Highness Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince. We are the past, we are the present, and we are the future. Thank you for listening and have a nice day.
Well done, good job.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good morning, everybody. I'm welcoming His Excellency Dr. Ali Arishi and also the Vice of the General Director of Jazan Directorate, Mr. Yasser Dewey, as well I'm welcoming also the Head of English Department at the Ministry of Education, Mr. Abdurrahman Al-Fareh. All of you are welcome here, and I have the proud to be in front of you to introduce the guest speaker. My name is Muhammad Abu Rajih, the teacher in Al-Daghari Secondary School, and I'm gonna to introduce our guest speaker for today in this occasion, Mr. Eli Gazel. Mr. Eli Gazel, an innovative and creative, has been involved in education and the developing of learning process over than 30 years. He is now directing and managing the Center for English Language at the Ministry of Education. He is a live learner himself and has met his high, and he is a live learner himself and made it his goal to inspire quality learning for the better enrichment of students in the future. Over here you will have Mr. Eli's speech, which entitled In Preparation for the Fifth Industrial Revolution. He will focus on developing a core learning approach that could be expanded into a dynamic concept that will involve all the stakeholders in education. Let's have those precious details about this issue with him. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Eli. Mr. Eli, you have about 40 minutes for this presentation and also an extra 5 minutes for questions. You are welcome.
A very good morning to everybody. I am proud and honored to be back in Jazan, and I'd like to thank everybody who has invited me here. I will try to build on what Mr. Frey said this morning and what Professor Ali just said. So they laid the foundation. They have said almost everything. I'm just going to try to put it into operation.
Keep it closer from your mouth.
Keep it closer. Thank you. I'm still waiting for my slide. Does it work? Hello? Where's mine?
Here you are, Mr. Eli.
Nice picture.
Maybe this one is better.
Yeah. Hello? Sorry, it's not here. I can't see it. Mr. Hamzi?
كان موجود البرنامج كان في مجلد هنا كان مجلد عرضنا كلها من اللي اعتزل
Just a few minutes. It says Jazan.
مجلد كامل مش موجود حق الأوراق العامة. كرر أرسله مرة ثانية عندك الآن. ترسله.
Is this connected to wireless?
So. You write the name. إيش كتبت عليه؟ الثالثة؟ في مجلد هنا. ايوه روح الثالث. اكتب اعطي بريك.
Jazan, something. go to the second slide, please? The second slide. This one.
Okay, come.
Okay. All right. Good. Okay, finally it's working. Shall we go? Okay. My talk today is from an educator. My talk for today is not about English language teaching and learning. It's about education, because we cannot have an English subject in isolation of all education. We're going to talk about 4 things. First of all, humans. We are human beings. So that's number 1. Number 2, we're going to talk about schooling for human beings. Number 3, we're going to be talking about how technology affects schooling and human beings. And finally, we're going to talk about what the new world should look like or will look like. Let's not forget, we are human beings. And we are still at the center of decision making. Machines do not decide on our behalf. So what makes us human beings? Number 1, we construct meaning. We don't repeat information. We are human beings. And this was the constructivism that Professor Ali was talking about. Number 2, believe it or not, we find problems to solve them. We don't just wait for a problem to come back. And if you don't believe me, think of somebody who created the Rubik's Cube. It's just a problem for somebody else to solve. We enjoy doing that as human beings. Number 3, we like to invent. We invented the Rubik's Cube, the TV camera. We keep inventing, not because there is necessity, but sometimes we invent for the sheer pleasure of it. We have moved into systems thinking. When human beings moved from hunter-gatherers and they went into let's farm, let's raise animals, let's grow, let's develop a community. That's systems thinking. And uniquely for humans, we store information outside our bodies. We don't store all the information here. And finally, the most important part of being a human being is that we can think about our own thinking, metacognition. Let's look at present-day schooling. In the present-day schooling, there is a timetable. Sunday morning, first subject, second subject, third subject. Monday morning, the same thing. Present-day schooling is made up of subjects. When the bell rings, subject number 1. And after the bell rings the second time, and the first teacher walks out, and the second teacher walks in, the second teacher wants the student to forget about the first period and concentrate on me now. And then the bell rings again, 5, 6, 7, 8 times a day, 5 days a week. That is the most anti-pedagogical model there is. Why did we get here? Schools are made up of classrooms with doors. If I wanted to present to a government or a regulatory board and say, my school does not have doors and walls, I probably will not get a permit to operate that school. And finally, the evil one, the test. It seems that present-day schooling lives for that grade on that test paper rather than the human quality that helped that person develop. Why is this so? Because in assessment or testing, look what we've got. The test requires correct answers to non-relevant, isolated skill questions. Each question is not connected to the next question. It's good for collecting data, but it is not a learning system. Technology. How has technology affected us? From the dawn of human beings, anything that can extend or multiply your power is called technology. From first time humans held a club to hunt an animal, to the bow and arrow, those are technology. And today, our technology is far advanced. But let's look what happened in learning. Thousands of years ago, people used stick in the dirt. Then Mesopotamia had clay tablets with cuneiform. Then, only 500 years ago, a person called Gutenberg invented a printing press, and suddenly information was available to more people in shorter time through reading. Before 500 years ago, it took time to disperse information and communicate. And inventions kept coming. Now, I am talking to you directly, but you can watch that later through a recording. But only 100 years ago, if you want to hear a person speaking or see a person moving, you have to be present. But today we can record it, we can store it, we can access it instantly from a device. And finally today, high-speed processing, the fastest ever, a digital smartphone in your hands where you can access all the information in the world within seconds. This is where we are today. But as Professor Ali said, they wanted to go to the moon. Was it yourself? But Jules Verne could only satisfy human beings' desire to go to the moon, but not how. He did not have the how. The only thing he could imagine was a powerful locomotive. Now, when we look at this, we find it ridiculous. Really? A locomotive driven by steam going to the moon? That's impossible. But at that time, his book was a bestseller because it was, I want to go to the moon, that was important, but nobody thought of the real how. Today, we have a merging of biology and technology together. Let's go back to the industrial revolutions that Mr. Frey talked about. The first industrial revolution, human beings felt that they were powerful. We have steam. We can generate energy. Then Henry Ford started to mass produce cars on an assembly line, each person doing only one job, one person changing the brakes, one person putting the wheel, one person doing this, assembly line. And by the second industrial revolution, human beings felt that we have reached the top. We have all the knowledge there is in the world. There can be nothing new. And then the third industrial revolution, computers. After that, today we have cyber. But unfortunately, we are at the cusp of the fifth industrial revolution. What is happening? Today, learning is about what we already know. But the learning should be, our schools, our education system should start to be about the unknown rather than just the known. Not what did you know, but what can you predict? How will you deal with the future? Then comes in artificial intelligence. Why is it scary? Because artificial intelligence is not a human robot. It is simply a computer program that can write itself. And what we have done today, the person who's inventing this phone does not go back to zero anymore. He starts where somebody else left. So they don't really know how that app works, but they know how to build on it. And to repeat what our colleagues just said, in 20 years' time, your 4-year-old child will have to deal with a completely new world. 9 out of 10 jobs have not been created yet. Explosion of technology is mind-boggling. Population is growing fast. And that is going to cause environmental issues. Less land, more food needed. Less water, more water needed. And here is why I am not speaking about English language learning by itself today. I'm speaking about education. The need to learn is needed to be faster. We cannot just say, oh, they will learn. They will learn. We have been talking about people graduating from university and ending up in the job market. But till today, university graduates still do not have the experience to go into the job market. And I'm speaking generally, except for doctors, engineers, and lawyers. They have to go through a period where they are trained before they go into the job market. So here's the question. What will happen if we don't do anything now? Number 2, how we will prepare our kids for the future. And number 3, what is the education plan? You cannot go back, get the same book, the same practice book, the same classroom, the same model, the same training, and go, oh, we're thinking about the future. What will happen? And I am here not to make you panic, but to raise awareness that we have somebody here who can take it to the top. What will happen if we don't progress and improve? There will be decline of knowledge, not just in Saudi Arabia, but I'm talking about the world. Fewer people will really know the knowledge because the population is exploding, the technology is increasing, and fewer people know about it. The fewer people know about it is a problem. We need more knowledgeable people. Breakdown. If right now your internet breaks down, you cannot even make a bank transaction anymore. Do you know that you don't have any money in the bank? You only have digital information that says you have money in the bank. You don't have actual money. So what would happen if there is a breakdown? Don't you think there are unscrupulous people in the world? There are. Those unscrupulous people can take advantage of the breakdown and control large swaths of resources. It's not just a matter of a classroom or teaching English. You don't need English just to open your mouth and make noise. English or language is about what your brain is doing. And finally, the most disastrous one, war. Education can help prevent wars. It can prevent unscrupulous people from taking over. So we don't just want to learn English to fill in the blanks of exercises or answer multiple choice questions. I have been living now in Saudi Arabia and working with the Ministry of Education for the past 14 months. I have had the honor and the pleasure and the fortune of visiting many different cities. The people I have met are amazing. They are wonderful. They are hardworking. There is no stereotype. And your country now, which is my adopted country right now because I'm living here, is on the global stage. It's not just a matter of speaking English. It's the matter of an education. Present-day teaching is still mostly based on a dominant design at the beginning of the first industrial revolution. You put the child from here, they change grades, you check them in every grade. If they're not doing well, you recycle them. That's the first industrial revolution model. And unfortunately, the school model is still the same. It's time to do what the great king of this country said: be pioneers and move into the future. Don't do what has already been done or the status quo. Question it, change it, move it up. You can do it. So, this is the schooling system. We give information, we test the students on information, and then we sort them. Good, poor, weak. Is that human to call a person weak because of a number on a test? We are human beings. We have capabilities. And we don't need teachers anymore. Be careful. I'm not saying you are not needed. You are needed, but in a different way. Information is no longer the teacher's prerogative. Information is everywhere. What we need now are learning designers. Learning designers. People who can design learning rather than just teach. And how are we going to do that? We all know that learning is built on experiences. Without an experience, learning is not there. So, artificial intelligence, don't be afraid of it. It only mimics the human learning process, but it doesn't have any emotions. And this is what makes us human beings. We have emotions, and emotions are good. They make us human. We have compassion. We have worries. This is good because it helps us evolve and develop. So, here's the model. This is a simple core model that helps you design the learning experience, the assessment, and it works on the principle of constructivism. To learn, you need information, right? Without information, there is no learning. So what is information? In language learning, information is simply what you hear, what you see, and more recently, what you read. I say more recently because reading did not come at the dawn of human. Reading came as an evolution. So we're born with the ability to see and hear, but we are not born with the ability to read. We need to learn reading. But reading now is the source of information. So what is the difference about reading now, reading 500 years ago, and reading 1,000 years ago? 1,000 years ago, reading was limited to how many books the scribes copied. 500 years ago, when Gutenberg made the printing press, there was more reading available. And today, every human being can be a reader. I remember when I was in the 8th grade, I needed a book for my project. I had to wait for my mother to take me to the library. And when I got to the library, the book had already been checked out. So the book I got was already 8 years old to read. Today, up-to-date information is accessible. But we are also born with prior knowledge. Have you seen your baby when it's afraid and it's only 6 months old? Why? It doesn't know anything. How can it be afraid? It's built in. We will call that a priori. And as the toddler starts to grow, and Piaget was observing his children, he noticed that they learn from experiences like, if you touch this and it's hot, I'm not going to touch it again. And finally, for the science and math teachers, information also comes in as heat. There is no hot and cold. There is heat, less heat, more heat. We call that cold. There is no dark and light. There is light or absence of light, and the rest. So all of this is information. If that information is important in itself, and we tell people about it and we test them, it's called regurgitation or rote learning. However, we're human beings. As human beings, we process that information. Now, many people use the word thinking. The word thinking is a head word. It's a category word. You have processing abilities that are called thinking. So, to learn, you need to process information. And here is where the constructivism starts. We are born with the ability to match. We are born with the ability to compare. So let's look at the word pattern. Everybody, can you join me? Pattern. Listen and continue with the next two words. Red, blue, green. Red, blue, green. Red. Your brain found the pattern and processed the information. And information is not knowledge. Your ability to process information is called knowledge. So these are things your grandpa or great-grandpa maybe could not read and write, but he certainly could process information. He could compare, he could contrast, he could classify. Now let's raise the level. If you're able to do these, you're able to predict, but you cannot start with ability to predict. What's the next one? What's the next one? Refer. When you connect two things that do not seem to have any connection, you are referring. You can find the effect. You can find the cause. Now, people talk about thinking. This is what we mean by thinking, and we have 250 of those processes in our brain. But let's move up to critical thinking. If you are able to reason, you're doing critical thinking. If you are able to find a flaw in something or someone's argument, you are doing critical thinking. And we don't have the time or the space on the slide to put them all, but Bloom's taxonomy, revised, I would like to add something because each human being who comes adds something to the concept. I do not prefer a Bloom's taxonomy that is vertical. I prefer a Bloom's taxonomy that is expandable into a concept because each one can lead to more than one. So this is processing information. But how do we turn it into a learning experience? The word is response, not answer. An answer is always only black and white, right? Wrong. Who can tell me? I can tell you. What about the rest of the students? You keep talking about student-centered, and you accept one student giving you a black and white answer. That is not learning. That is giving an answer. And the human brain, when it gives an answer, it stops thinking about it in the classroom. So how are we going to solve that problem? To design constructivism, constructivist learning, to process information, this is where you come in as a learning designer. You design the response that will force the brain to compare the information, without just saying, compare the information. Let's take an example. First of all, how many responses and what are the responses that a human being can give? A human being can talk. A human being can take action. A human being can that's not a response. Thinking is in the brain. It's a process. How do you know what I am thinking is a response? Before the writing, we have provided images. Cavemen drew on the wall. And finally, more recently in human life, we write. So every design that you make to force your student to process information has to depend on how you design the response. For example, if I say, write 3 things in this picture that are the same as in the other picture, I'm forcing you to compare. Write 3 things in this picture that are different from the other picture, I'm forcing your brain to contrast. So what I have noticed, and please forgive me for being very open and honest and lucid about this, the instructions in the textbook have got to go up in level of producing thinking rather than a list of instructions for the teachers to do. But remember, response is not a reply. How do we create learning? The most important part that we need to move to is not to fill in the blanks or choose the answer, but where one student's response causes a reaction in another student. If one human being does not cause a reaction in another human being, learning has not happened. It's only a test. So, to remember, if you put, like Professor Ali said, multiple sources of information, something that you hear and read at the same time, and you process it, it's higher level. The processing can be one, or it can be multiple processing, like you need to compare and identify and classify at the same time. That's higher thinking. But it cannot happen because we talked about it. It can only happen because you designed the task to do that. So, when we respond as human beings and to say learning is happening, 3 things. My response must cause a change in my surrounding, or it must cause a change in another human being, or it must cause a change in myself, or all 3. So the traditional design of here is the exercise, give me the answer, the student will give you the answer. The student will give you the answer, but that's it. It's not called learning, it's called testing. You want learning? We redesign it so that it causes a reaction in another person, or in myself, or in my surroundings. Artificial intelligence, don't be afraid of it. It's like us, but unfortunately, it's faster. It has long-lasting memory, and it has no emotions. So if it wakes up in the morning and had a fight with his or her spouse, it doesn't affect him. They are not emotional creations. So, how are we going to redesign education for the 5th industrial revolution? Number 1, try to design the learning as it's what you can do, not what you can answer. So this is principle number 1 in restructuring curricula, not textbook, curricula, to say the principle of the curricula is in what you can do, not what you can answer. Principle number 2, Is it causing a change and reaction in others, yourself, and your surroundings? If it's not, then it's not doing its job. Principles of the new curricula. Three. It's using multiple sources. At the moment, textbooks has a paragraph. The textbook has a paragraph with 6 questions. That's single source. Using multiple sources and multiple processing is needed to create real life. When you are living in life, you do not do single processing and single source. You do multiple source with multiple processing. That's real life. Principle number 4. The learning tasks that we design, you design, and us, need to show the processing skills, not the correct answer. So what we have been able to do at the Center for English Language, in a small scale, really not huge, but we have started that I'm not interested in the final answer. I'm interested in how you get to the answer, because if you know how to get there, you don't need a test anymore. You know how. You can deal with any source. And finally, the most important thing that makes us human beings, learning tasks need to serve our human interest, not a paper test. If it doesn't serve our human interest, it is just dried learning. These are the principles of the new curricula for the 5th Industrial Revolution. Remember the headwords. There should be problem finding. There should be inventing. There should be systems thinking. There should be storing and accessing information rather than we give everything to the kids. This is the principle of how all the other subjects and what school should start to look like. But it's not going to happen overnight. It's not you flip a switch. It's working together. And this is the model that we have now. Teacher walks in, teacher walks out. New subject, old subject. New subject, old subject. But we don't know what all the students can do except through a quiz, which does not cover much. However, if we connect all these tasks into what we called at the center focal points, which is not 6 exercises on 2 pages, but one task that joins all of them together in one ability or performance, and we're going to call that the performance task. Okay, so to end, as we move into the 5th phase of technology, schooling in the present model will no longer be able to help us. What we need to do, all of us, from Professor Ali, all the way down to me, because I'm the last one in the line, we need to work together in earnest to address and develop the needs of the future generation. I'd like to stop here and say thank you very much. Please feel free to contact the Center for English Language. You have great projects, you have great ideas. The head of the English department, everybody, we need to work together. So please feel free to contact us.
Okay, thank you. Wasn't wonderful presentation? Yes, it is. Anyhow, thank you, Mr. Eli Gazal, for this informative and very attractive presentation. Right now, we asked Mr. Yasser Dewey, would you please come here to honor Mr. Eli Gazal? And as well, Mr. Aguili. come over here, son. Jimbo.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure and an honor to work with you and to serve the kingdom's interests. We're all human beings in this world.
أيضا تكريم للمعلم المقدم لهذه الفقرة. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Come with me, son. Come closer.
Closer, okay.
Yeah. All right.
Give it mine. Well, let's now know the second winner of Wall Street cars. تعالوا شوي على الشاشة كده. Would you please go now to the Wall Street corner now? يعطيك العافية.
The homeland is not only an entity, no trade, no housing. The homeland saves the team difficulties, but now the word vision and student Amna. Vision of freedom on the day announced by wise. All the advantages of the country and its economy. A vision of demonstrate prosperity. She won the admiration of all the community and they're the custodian of the two holy mosques and His Highness the Crown Prince. And may God bless the effort of our dear people to protect our dear homeland. Our is Vision 2030 will have an impact in the future, Allah willing. Our first goal is to be a successful and pioneering model in the world at Olivia, and we will work with you to achieve this. Saudi Arabia, the Arab and Islamic depth, is a burning investing force and hub for linking the continents. Our Arab and Islamic depth is our best success factor in our vision. The most successful vision are those that build on strengths. Now we have a beautiful song about homeland with Munira. Home, there's no place like home. Love, everywhere I go. 2030 now, let go. It's time to be the word I will show. There's no place like Saudi, you better know. Faz your flag high and say, oh, home. There's no place like home. Love, everywhere I go. Home, there's no place like home. Love, everywhere I go. Oh, 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 no place like home. Oh, 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 everywhere I go. Oh, 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 no place like home. Oh, 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 everywhere I go. Future somehow, you seem like glow. That's everyone, take good care of. Women driven have one zero. In David, but it's happy. We be so home. There's no place like home, love. Everywhere I go, home. There's no place like home, love. Everywhere I go, love my Kent, love my flag, dim brown prince, knee tower back, soldiers up, and forever think my heart's will never want him back home. There's no place like home, love. Everywhere I go, home. There's no place like home, love. Everywhere I go.
Thank you very much for this great participation.
Oh, there's a place like home, love. Everywhere I go, 2013 now, let go. I tell you the world also. That you're a sex your Palano. Have a apple pie and say you're home. There's a place like love. Everywhere I go, home. There's a place like love. Everywhere I go, oh, whoa, whoa. Your place I've grown, oh, whoa, whoa. Everywhere I've grown, oh, whoa, whoa. Your place I've grown, oh, whoa, whoa. Everywhere I've grown, oh. There's a place like love. Everywhere I go, home. There's a place like love. Everywhere I go.
Thank you very much for this great participation. Right now we have a break for 20 minutes, and after that we'll come back, inshallah.
Here's the presentation. Where's the clicker?
تست مايك تست مايك بسم الله بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم تست مايك بسم الله.
You be up here? You want to be up here? To help you? Yeah. Absolutely. All right, step here now, just like next slide. Okay. Want to go like that? Because I want to walk around. Or put me up after break. Oh my God. Isn't that nice? Isn't that nice? You mean everyone's like active? They're going to be, well, they might be. When I get to 10 minutes, do this or whatever, because I want to be done in 12 minutes and then see if they interact. Because I have 20, I want to be done in 10. But I want to move them around. You know?